I found out about the missing money during my mother's funeral. $450,000 gone from my parents' retirement account. My name is Michael, 36 years old, middle school history teacher in Portland. I'd been helping Dad sort through Mom's paperwork when we discovered the empty accounts. This can't be right, Dad said, his voice thin and fragile. He hadn't been the same since Mom's cancer diagnosis 6 months earlier. Now, 2 weeks after her passing, he looked hollowed out, a man swimming through fog. I stared at the bank statement. Balance $1,247.83. The previous statement from 3 months ago showed $451,628.59. Let me call the bank, I said. Dad nodded, then shuffled to the living room where he'd been sleeping since Mom died. Couldn't face their bedroom alone, he'd said. The customer service rep confirmed what I already suspected. There were several large withdrawals in March and April, Mr. Callahan. All authorized with the correct account information and passwords. By who? I asked, though I already knew. There was only one other person with access. The transactions were completed by Emma Callahan. She's listed as a joint account holder. Emma. My sister. I thanked the representative and hung up. Sat at my parents' kitchen table for a long moment, trying to process what I'd learned. Emma had emptied our parents' accounts while Mom was dying and Dad was falling apart. The money they'd spent 40 years saving. Their retirement. Their security. What I didn't understand was why. Emma wasn't struggling financially. She was a corporate lawyer in Chicago, made 6 figures, lived in a downtown high-rise. What could she possibly need with our parents' retirement savings? I called her 3 times. Straight to voicemail each time. Finally, I texted, *, need to talk about Mom and Dad's accounts. Call me ASAP, *. Her response came an hour later, *, can't talk now. In meetings all day. Everything's fine. We'll explain later, *. Everything was not fine. Everything was as far from fine as it could possibly be. Dad appeared in the doorway, looking older than his 68 years. Was it the bank's mistake? I couldn't tell him. Not yet. Not until I understood what had happened. I'm still figuring it out, Dad. Why don't you get some rest? I'll handle this. He nodded, grateful to be absolved of one more burden. That was always our family dynamic. Dad took care of Mom. I took care of logistics. Emma took care of Emma. Growing up in Seattle, Emma was always the star of the family. Debate team captain, class valedictorian, scholarship to Northwestern, then law school at Chicago. Mom and Dad were so proud, bragged about her to everyone. Meanwhile, I stayed local, became a teacher, married my college girlfriend Sarah, had 2 kids. A good life, but never quite measuring up to Emma's achievements. I loved my sister, but there was always something calculating about her. The way she'd assess situations, people, relationships, always looking for advantage, leverage, benefit. Mom called it ambition. Dad called it drive. I saw it as something colder. I spent that night going through every financial document in my parents' house. The retirement account wasn't the only thing that had been drained. 3 other accounts, a CD that had matured, and a small investment portfolio, all emptied. In total, almost $450,000 was gone. I found power of attorney documents with my father's signature dated 2 months ago, giving Emma control over all their finances. The signature looked shaky, uncertain exactly how Dad had been during Mom's final weeks. Had he known what he was signing? Had Emma explained it to him? I needed answers, but I also needed to be smart. Emma wasn't just my sister, she was a corporate attorney who specialized in financial law. If she'd done something wrong, she'd have covered her tracks. Sarah called while I was still going through papers. "How's your dad holding up?" she asked. "Not great. And it's worse than we thought." I explained about the missing money. Sarah was quiet for a moment. "You think Emma took it? Why would she do that?" "I don't know. But I'm going to find out. Tread carefully, Michael. Family financial disputes get ugly fast." Sarah always saw the bigger picture, the potential fallout. It was one of the reasons I loved her. One of the reasons we worked. "I will," I promised. The next morning, I took Dad to breakfast at his favorite diner. He ordered coffee and toast but barely touched either. I waited until he seemed settled before bringing it up. "Dad, do you remember signing any paperwork for Emma recently? About your finances?" He frowned, stirring his coffee. "She brought some papers when she visited during your mother's last week. Said it would make it easier to help manage things while we were focused on your mom." "Why? Did she explain what the documents were?" "Something about power of attorney. So she could help with bills and such." He looked up, suddenly concerned. "Is something wrong?" I couldn't lie to him, but I couldn't devastate him either. "Not until I was certain. I'm just trying to understand what's happening with your accounts." There might have been some unusual transactions. Dad put down his spoon. Emma's a good girl, Michael. She knows about finances. That's why we trusted her with this. I nodded, heartbreaking at his implicit faith in my sister. I know, Dad. I'm sure there's an explanation. After breakfast, I dropped Dad at his friend Carl's house for their weekly chess game, then drove to the bank. The branch manager was a woman named Patricia, about my age, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. I wish I could show you the transaction details, Mr. Callahan, but without your name on the accounts or a power of attorney, I can't disclose that information. My sister emptied my parents' retirement accounts. My mother just died. My father is devastated. There has to be something you can do. Patricia's expression softened. I'm very sorry for your loss. But banking regulations are clear. If your sister had legal authority over the accounts, and it appears she did, then the transactions were legitimate from our perspective. Even if she was stealing from our elderly father. That would be a matter for the police or adult protective services, not the bank. She hesitated, then added, off the record, if you're concerned about exploitation, you should document everything and consult an attorney. I thanked her and left, already making a mental list. Document everything. Call an attorney. Figure out how to prove what Emma had done. When I picked up Dad, he seemed a little brighter. Chess with Carl always lifted his spirits. On the drive home, he surprised me. Your mother knew she was dying long before she told us. I glanced over. What do you mean? She found out the cancer was terminal during her first appointment. Told me later she couldn't bear to say it out loud, not right away. He stared out the window. She spent those weeks getting things in order. You know how she was. I did know. Mom was the organized one, the planner, the one who thought ahead. She set up those accounts for us. Made sure everything was ready for when she was gone. His voice broke slightly. She wanted us to be taken care of. The accounts Emma had emptied. The security Mom had tried to provide. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, anger building beneath my ribs. When we got home, Dad went to lie down. I sat in the kitchen again, spreading out the financial documents, trying to piece together what had happened. My phone buzzed. Emma. Michael, what's going on? Your texts sounded urgent. I kept my voice even. Did you withdraw money from Mom and Dad's accounts? Silence for a moment. Then, yes, I moved some funds around. I'm helping manage their finances. You emptied their retirement account, Emma. $450,000 is gone. Another pause. It's not gone. I've invested it more strategically. The returns will be much better. Invested it where? In what? And why didn't you discuss this with Dad? Or me? Dad gave me power of attorney for a reason, Michael. He trusts my financial judgment. And no offense, but you're a middle school teacher. What do you know about investment strategy? The condescension in her voice was familiar. Emma always thought she was the smartest person in the room. This isn't about investment strategy, Emma. This is about taking almost $500,000 without telling anyone. I didn't take it. I moved it. There's a difference. Where? Where did you move it? To more appropriate vehicles. Listen, I've got a meeting. We can discuss this when I come for the memorial service this weekend. Emma, but she'd already hung up. I stared at my phone, frustration building. She was evading, deflecting, talking down to me as if I wouldn't understand the complexities of what she'd done. Classic Emma. That night, after Dad had gone to bed, I called my old college roommate, Jake, who was now a financial advisor. If she really invested the money, there would be statements, records, something showing where it went, Jake said after I explained the situation. The fact that she won't tell you exactly where it is, that's concerning. What should I do? Get a lawyer, man. If your sister took your dad's money, that's elder abuse. It's serious stuff. I spent the next day gathering more evidence. Found bank statements showing the series of withdrawals Emma had made, $50,000 here, $75,000 there, all within weeks of getting power of attorney. No corresponding statements showing where the money had gone. When I checked on Dad, I found him in his home office, rummaging through drawers. Looking for something, Dad? He glanced up, slightly embarrassed. My recorder. The small digital one I use for bird calls. Dad was an amateur birder, spent hours in the backyard with his binoculars and field guides. I can help you look for it. What drawer did you keep it in? It's not there. I checked. He sighed. It's not important. Just gives me something to focus on besides. His voice trailed off. Besides Mom's death. Besides the empty house. Besides the future stretching out lonely and uncertain. We'll find it. I promised. Or I'll get you a new one. 2 days later, Emma arrived for Mom's memorial service. She looked exactly as I expected, designer clothes, perfect hair, the polished appearance of success. She hugged Dad tightly in the driveway. "How are you holding up?" she asked him. "Taking it day by day," he replied, his voice steadier than it had been all week. "Having both my kids here helps." Emma and I exchanged tense nods. The last time we'd spoken in person had been at Mom's bedside, a month earlier. The memorial service was small but meaningful. Mom had wanted it that way. Friends shared stories about her kindness, her sharp wit, her legendary blueberry pies. Dad managed to speak briefly, his voice breaking only once. I read a poem she'd loved. Emma talked about Mom's strength and determination, qualities she'd always claimed to inherit. Afterward, people gathered at the house with casseroles and condolences. Emma worked the room like a politician, graciously accepting sympathy, making sure everyone had food and drinks. Always the perfect daughter. It wasn't until late that night, after everyone had gone and Dad had finally fallen asleep, that Emma and I sat across from each other at the kitchen table. "We need to talk about the money," I said. Emma sighed dramatically. "I knew you wouldn't let this go. $450,000 is missing from Dad's accounts. Our parents' entire retirement savings. Of course, I'm not letting it go. It's not missing. I've moved it to better investments." "Where? Show me the statements. Show me where this money is now." She crossed her arms. "I don't have to show you anything. Dad gave me power of attorney, not you, because he was overwhelmed and grieving. Did you explain what that meant when you had him sign the papers? Did you tell him you'd be emptying his accounts?" Emma's eyes flashed. "I'm protecting their assets. Dad doesn't know the first thing about money management. Mom was always the one who handled their finances. So you decided to step in and help by taking all their money?" "I didn't take it." Her voice rose, then she caught herself, glancing toward the hallway where Dad's room was. "The money is safe. It's invested. It's actually going to grow substantially. Then show me the investment accounts. They're still being set up. These things take time." I stared at her, recognition dawning. "There are no investments, are there?" Emma stood up abruptly. "I don't have to justify myself to you. Dad trusted me with this responsibility because I'm qualified. You've always been jealous of my success, Michael. That's what this is really about. This is about our father's future. The money Mom and Dad saved for 40 years, so they wouldn't have to worry in their old age. I'm going to bed. We can discuss this when you're being more reasonable." She turned to leave. "I'll go to the police," I said quietly. She froze, then turned back slowly. "Excuse me? If you don't return the money, I'll report you for elder abuse and financial exploitation." Emma laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. "With what evidence?" "Dad gave me legal authority over his finances. I have documentation for everything. Who do you think they'll believe? A corporate attorney or a schoolteacher with a grudge?" She was right and she knew it. Without proof of her intentions, it would be her word against mine. And Emma had always been the more convincing one. That after she left, I sat in the dim kitchen, feeling utterly defeated. How could I prove what she'd done? How could I protect Dad from his own daughter? The next morning, tensions were high. Emma avoided being alone with me, focusing her attention on Dad, playing the dutiful daughter. I watched her, wondering how long she'd stay, wondering what would happen to Dad when she left and the money never materialized. That afternoon, Dad asked if I would drive him to the cemetery to visit Mom's grave. Emma declined to join us, saying she had work calls to make. I in the car. Dad was quiet, staring out the window. Then, without preamble, he said, "Emma took the money, didn't she?" I nearly swerved off the road. "You know?" He nodded slowly. "Not at first, but I heard you two arguing last night, and I've been thinking about the papers she had me sign. I didn't read them carefully. I wasn't thinking clearly then. Dad, I'm so sorry." He shook his head. "It's not your fault. I should have been more careful. Your mother would have seen right through it." At the cemetery, we stood before Mom's simple headstone. Dad placed fresh flowers beside it. "She was always the smarter one of us," he said softly. Saw people for who they really were. We'll figure this out, Dad. I promise. He looked at me, and for the first time since Mom died, I saw something besides grief in his eyes. I saw resolve. I think, he said carefully, I might have something that will help. When we returned home, Emma was on her laptop at the dining room table, typing furiously. She barely glanced up when we entered. Dad motioned for me to follow him to his bedroom. He closed the door behind us, then went to his closet. From the back of the top shelf, he retrieved a small box. I've been recording my bird calls for years, he said, opening the box to reveal a small digital recorder. Always kept this with me. Force of habit, I suppose. He turned the device over in his hands. The week your mother died, when Emma came to visit and brought those papers for me to sign. She made a phone call after I'd gone to bed. I'd left my recorder on the kitchen counter. It was still running. My heart began to race. Dad, what are you saying? I didn't listen to it until after you started asking questions about the money. Didn't want to believe it. His hands trembled slightly as he held out the recorder. But it's all here, Michael. Everything we need. I took the device, pressed play, and held it between us. Emma's voice came through clearly. Finally got access to everything. Yes, all the accounts. No, it wasn't difficult. He's completely out of it with Mom dying. About $450,000 total. No, they won't notice, not right away. Dad never paid attention to their finances, and Michael's clueless about this stuff. We can move it through the property in Denver first, then offshore. Of course I'll stick around until after the funeral. I'm not heartless. No, this is just what I deserve after putting my career on hold to help them. Trust me, by the time anyone realizes what's happened, the money will be untraceable. Dad reached over and stopped the recording, his face ashen. There's more, he said quietly. But I couldn't bear to hear it again. I stared at the small device in my hand. The evidence we needed. Proof of Emma's intentions. Her calculated betrayal. Dad, this changes everything. He nodded, suddenly looking very tired. I know. I just don't know what to do with it. That was the moment I realized the weight of the decision before us. This wasn't just about the money anymore. This was about our family. About how revealing this truth would irreparably shatter what was left of it. We should think carefully about next steps, I said. Dad agreed. Your mother would want us to be smart about this. We decided not to confront Emma immediately. Instead, I made a copy of the recording and secured the original in my bag. Then I called Sarah to explain what we'd discovered. You need to get legal advice, she said. This is serious, Michael. This is criminal. She was right. The next morning, while Emma was out for a run, I called a lawyer who specialized in elder law and financial exploitation. Her name was Diane Mercer, and she agreed to meet us that afternoon. Dad's not feeling well, I told Emma when she returned. I'm taking him to the doctor. She frowned. Should I come along? No need. Probably just fatigue. You stay here. Get your work done. At Diane's office, she listened to portions of the recording, her expression growing increasingly grave. This is damning evidence, she said. Combined with the bank records and the power of attorney obtained under questionable circumstances, we have a strong case for financial exploitation. What are our options? I asked. Several, Diane replied. We can go to the police. This is a criminal matter. We can file for an emergency petition to revoke the power of attorney. We can freeze any remaining assets. But first, I suggest we try a direct approach. What do you mean? Dad asked. Confrontation with the evidence. Sometimes, when faced with irrefutable proof, people will try to mitigate the damage by cooperating. I glanced at Dad. What do you think? He looked down at his hands. I want the money back. I need that security. But Emma's still my daughter. His voice broke slightly. Where did we go wrong with her? Diane's expression softened. This isn't your fault, Mr. Callahan. Financial exploitation happens in all kinds of families, across all socioeconomic backgrounds. We developed a plan. Diane drafted an agreement stating that Emma would return all funds without admitting wrongdoing. If she refused, we'd proceed with legal action. When we arrived home, Emma was in the kitchen making dinner, playing the role of dutiful daughter to perfection. "How was the doctor?" she asked, stirring something on the stove. "We didn't go to the doctor," I said. "We went to see a lawyer." Emma's hand stilled for just a moment before she resumed stirring. "A lawyer? Why?" "We know what you did with the money, Emma," Dad said quietly. She turned, her expression carefully neutral. "I told you I've invested it more strategically." "Stop lying," I said. "We heard your phone conversation. The one where you discussed moving the money through Denver and then offshore. Where you said it would be untraceable." A flash of something panic? Anger crossed her face before she controlled it. "I don't know what you're talking about." Dad stepped forward, his voice steady. "I recorded you, Emma. The night you had me sign those papers. My bird call recorder was on the counter. It caught everything." The color drained from Emma's face. "You recorded me? That's illegal. You can't record someone without their consent." "Washington is a two-party consent state," I agreed. "But there's an exception when there's no reasonable expectation of privacy, like in a kitchen that's common space. And there's definitely an exception for recording evidence of a crime." Emma's facade cracked. "This is ridiculous. You're twisting things." I took out my phone and played a portion of the recording. Her voice filled the kitchen, about $450,000 total. "No, they won't notice, not right away, as she heard her own words. Emma sank into a chair. "You don't understand." "Then explain it to us," Dad said. "Explain why you stole from your own parents." "I didn't steal. She stopped, regrouped. "The money is mine by right. Do you have any idea what I've sacrificed for this family? My career has suffered because I'm always the one who drops everything when there's a crisis. I'm the one who flew back and forth when Mom was sick. I'm the one who's always been expected to succeed. So that entitles you to take their life savings?" I asked incredulously. "I earn more in a year than Dad did at the peak of his career. More than you'll make in 5 years. And yet you're both still treated like the real heroes, Dad with his humble principal's job, you teaching middle school like it's some noble calling. Meanwhile, my success is treated as suspect, as if there's something wrong with ambition." Dad looked at her sadly. "Is that really what you think? That we didn't value you? You didn't. You still don't. You see my career as cold and mercenary. You've never respected what I do." "Emma," Dad said gently, "we've always been proud of you. But success isn't measured by salary. It's measured by character. By how you treat people who need you. Like how you're treating Dad now." I added, "By stealing the security Mom worked so hard to build for him?" Emma's eyes flashed. "It's not stealing if I deserve it." The words hung in the air, damning in their selfishness. Dad straightened, something hardening in his expression. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign this agreement our lawyer prepared, returning every dollar you took. You're going to resign as my power of attorney. And you're going to do it now. And if I don't, then we take this recording to the police," I said. "And you face criminal charges for elder financial exploitation. Your law career would be over." Emma stared at us, calculation visible behind her eyes. "I need to think about this." "No," Dad said firmly. "No more manipulation. No more lies. You sign now or we call the police now." For the first time in my life, I saw my sister truly cornered. She had always been able to talk her way out of anything, to spin circumstances to her advantage. But not this time. "Fine," she said finally. "I'll sign. But I want it noted that I'm doing this under duress." "Noted," I replied. The next few hours were tense but productive. Emma signed the agreement. She made the necessary calls to begin the process of returning the funds, much of which, it turned out, was sitting in a private account in her name, not invested as she'd claimed. She revoked her power of attorney. And she booked a flight back to Chicago for the following morning. Before she left, she stood in the hallway with her suitcase, looking smaller somehow, diminished. "I never meant for it to go this far," she said. "But it did," I replied. "Will you ever forgive me?" she asked, looking at Dad. He sighed deeply. "I don't know, Emma. I honestly don't know." After she left, the house felt both emptier and lighter. Dad and I sat in the living room, emotionally drained. "Should we have gone to the police?" I asked. Dad shook his head. "No. The money's coming back. That's what matters. As for Emma," he looked out the window. "She's still my daughter. Your sister. We'll find a way forward eventually. Maybe not tomorrow or next month, but someday." I nodded, though I wasn't as certain. What Emma had done had broken something fundamental in our family, something that might never fully heal. Over the next few weeks, the funds gradually returned to Dad's accounts. Diane helped us set up new protections so nothing like this could happen again. I stayed with Dad longer than I'd planned, helping him adjust to life without Mom, to life with this new understanding of his daughter. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, something he and Mom used to do together, Dad said, "Your mother would be proud of you, Michael, for standing up for what's right, for protecting our family in your own way." "I wish she were here," I said. "Me too." He was quiet for a moment. "But I think she is, in a way. She taught us both to fight for what matters, to recognize truth even when it's painful." I thought about that recorder left running by chance or fate or Mom's guiding hand. About how even in her absence, she'd helped us see what needed to be seen. 3 months later, Emma sent a letter. Not an email or a text, but an actual handwritten letter. It was addressed to both of us, Dad and Michael, I've been in therapy since returning to Chicago. My therapist suggested I write this letter as part of my healing process, but also as part of making amends. What I did was inexcusable. I convinced myself I was entitled to that money, that I deserved it for all I'd sacrificed. I told myself stories about being undervalued and overlooked until I believed them completely. The truth is, I was envious. Not of your money, but of your contentment. Dad found fulfillment in education, in shaping young minds. Michael found it in teaching, in his family, in the simple life he built. Mom found it in creating a home and security for all of us. I chased success and achievement, thinking it would fill some hole inside me. It never did. So I took what wasn't mine, thinking that might help. It only made the hole deeper. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know I'm working to understand why I did what I did and to become someone better than I've been. The money has all been returned. I've included documentation from the bank confirming the transfers. I've also enclosed a check for the interest that would have accrued during these months. I miss you both. I miss Mom. I miss the family we were before I destroyed it. With regret and hope. Emma. Dad read the letter twice, then carefully folded it and put it in his pocket. "People can change," he said, "if they want it badly enough. Do you believe she wants to?" I asked. He looked toward the garden where Mom's roses were blooming again after a dormant winter. "I believe she's trying. And that's a start." 6 months after Mom's death, Dad came to visit Sarah and me in Portland. He seemed stronger, more present. The grief was still there, it would always be there, but it no longer consumed him. We sat on our back deck while my kids played in the yard, their laughter floating up like bubbles in the summer air. "I've been thinking about forgiveness," Dad said. "Not just forgiving Emma, but forgiving myself." "Yourself? For what?" "For not seeing what was happening. For being so lost in grief that I let your mother down when it came to protecting what she'd built for us." I shook my head. "Dad, none of this was your fault." "Perhaps not. But I've realized something important. Forgiving isn't the same as forgetting. We can forgive Emma without forgetting what she did. We can love her without trusting her, at least not yet. We can move forward without going back to how things were." His words stayed with me long after he returned to Seattle. The idea that forgiveness wasn't an all-or-nothing proposition, that it could be nuanced and conditional and still be real. A year after Mom died, we held a small gathering at her favorite park. Dad, Sarah, our kids, a few close friends, and Emma, who Dad had invited after months of cautious communication and evidence of her continued therapy. She looked different, less polished, somehow more authentic. She hung back at first, uncertain of her welcome. But Dad embraced her, and slowly, awkwardly, we found a way to be together again. Not like before. Never like before. But together nonetheless. We scattered flowers on the lake, Mom's favorite activity whenever we came to this park. Dad stood between Emma and me, an arm around each of us. "Your mother once told me that family is the hardest work we ever do," he said quietly. "And the most important." I glanced at Emma, saw tears tracking down her face. Saw remorse and regret and something like hope. I thought about the money, now safely back where it belonged. About the recording that had been both a weapon and a shield. About all the ways we fail each other and all the ways we try to make amends. Family is indeed the hardest work. Sometimes it breaks under the strain. Sometimes the fractures heal stronger than before. Sometimes we have to redefine what family means entirely. Standing there with Dad and Emma, with Sarah and our children, I realized we were doing exactly that. Redefining. Rebuilding. Beginning again with truth as our foundation. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was real. And in that reality, however painful, we found our way forward, together, apart, and everything in between.